Okay, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. Great to see such a good crowd in person and folks online as well. This is the last WyGISC Geospatial Forum of the semester. And this week we're excited to have our very own Dr. Dee Yang as our presenter. Dee's been with us now, gosh, since the fall of 2020. Yep. So she was one of those lucky folks that got to start a new job at a new place right in the middle of a global pandemic. So challenging for sure, but we're so glad that she's here with us. She came to us at that time from a postdoc she was doing with the Montana Heritage Program. And prior to that, she finished up her PhD at the University of Florida. So I know she has lots to talk about, so I'm going to get out of the way and turn it over to Dr. Yang. So welcome.
For the introduction, and actually it's my first time presenting here in the university.
Oh.
Yeah, so today I'm going to talk about the integrating the geospatial AI and the citizen science in landscape and ecological monitoring. So I'm gonna spend first of the part of the seminar talking about the importance of citizen science, and then more applications into the geo AI, and also about the one of several projects of my NASA funded programs projects. And so what is citizen science? So the citizen science is more like scientific research conducted by many non-professional scientists can make contributions to both data collections and also from all different perspectives. And so the most important takeaway from this slide is in the United States, citizen science are supported by many federal agencies. For example, NOAA, NASA Citizen Science, and USDA Forest Services, and also as the EPA. So we can now see the scenarios in the other countries. So the citizen science are also viewed by we can call them the crowd science, community science, participatory monitoring and research. And so during the last decades, the citizen science have been improving, rising, in an exponential speed. So I'm gonna talk about from the biological conservation perspective here. Many of us are familiar with the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, which is the largest database that we use for the biodiversity. So the GBIF, during the last 3 to 4 years, the citizen scientists contribute more than 50% of the data. And so here we can see that here's the trend, almost the citizen scientists are taking over more than a half of the data contributions. So all of the data contributions are come from hundreds of different citizen science projects. So the eBird and the iNaturalist and also the Swedish species observation systems are the most major 3 contributors. And also there are a lot of publications that are rising by the last decades. So this is one review that I found that also the publications are increasing crazy for the last decades as well. And also the number of the citizen science programs are also increasing during the last decades, hundreds of programs are rising. For example, the eBird and also the Journey North and the monarch butterfly. And then iNaturalist and many, many more. So, and the thing that I want to mention that the rise of citizen science is a sign that to connect the citizens to the science communities. And so here I want to mention that the citizen science are also considered as for like the most important characteristics of the big data in the natural resources. So there are four, we can consider like 4V for the big data in natural resources: the volume, veracity, velocity, and variety. So like, for example, the volume we use is usually considered as the Earth observations. The Earth observations that we collect the data in remote sensing images. And so for the veracity, we usually refer to for like examples in citizen science effort. So the data are collected in many different ways. And so for the velocity perspective is like, we have a lot of near real-time sensor networks, for example, like the NEON and the FluxNet, like the carbon towers. So all those near real-time sensor networks are really forming like a large scale networks for the large big data connections. And also like at the same time, we have a lot of field observations that contribute by the scientists. For example, like also like NEON and LTR from USDA. So the scientists also make a lot of contributions to the network. And all those are considered as like the big characters for the big data. And so also here, I want to mention that there is a lot of potential for combining the citizen science data with Earth observations. So for the sensors, I want to like ask like, how many satellites do you think is orbiting the Earth last year? So the answer is 6,540. So those numbers are like really large. And for example, in the right corner, it's just a scene of Landsat. And the Landsat scene, it has the size of 2 gigabytes per scene. So this is like a cover for like 100 kilometers. So imagine that like 6,000 sensors amount of data. So like all those potentials are giving us like a lot of opportunities for citizen science data. And so I also like here, I want to talk about the value for the citizen science. So for a lot of the cases, when we are talking about the citizen science, we got challenged by how is the data quality and how is the QA/QC control. So, and here a lot of like the analysis have been done about the quality of data that collected by the citizens and volunteers. And those data has really priceless values for like across many disciplines. For example, like for the animal migrations. So like the monarch butterfly path was founded by citizen scientists. So all those like data and many other data are like data qualities are also approved by the quantitative analysis that I'm gonna show later. Yeah, so here is a plot for like how can we make optimal use for citizen science data. So for example, here we have one expert and then we have like a crowd of people. So with all those crowd people like trained it in using like collecting the data and also for collecting the data and also doing some data measurements. So we can see that the accuracy is actually can be very clear, very close to the expert level. And also like we also have a lot of from geography perspective, we also have a lot of sometimes we call that the bias, geospatial bias. So how can we deal with the geospatial analysis for those big data in the geospatial citizen science data? So here are some filters that we use for like how we filter out, how we do the geographic filter for the citizen science data. So here I list some of for iNaturalist as an example. So, and there are a lot of different type or data categories under the iNaturalist. And for a lot of them are listed under the research grade. So all those research grade data have very high quality and also been evaluated and peer reviewed by the other citizen scientists. And also, like we normally do, like we filter out the research grade data. And also for like to avoid the geospatial autocorrelation, we also did like a detection of how it's a semi-variogram for all the observations. And then like a lot of citizen science data are clustered like in the urban areas. So here we also did a lot of the population filter out in the citizen science data. So here's an example that we did the land scan for filter out the remove the geospatial cluster, kind of remove the geospatial cluster in the urban area. And then we also did a lot of things to spread the data set to be at least several kilometers apart if we are doing large data analysis. So this is a continental scale example for how we filter out the citizen science data. And so here I'm going to introduce some applications that I did for the iNaturalist. So iNaturalist is very popular for the species observations during the last several years. So I'm going to tell a story in this slides for a large, the giant fire happened, the mega fire happened in 2020 August. So and also that is another thing happened the next month. It's a great, a huge snowstorm. So all those things happen after that, the citizens start to report a lot of massive birds died in their backyard. So so here is one of the report from my publications. So the citizens start to report the pictures of the dead birds from all different corners in the Western United States. So, and there are in the iNaturalist, they have projects that called the AVN, Southwest Avian Mortality Projects. So we collect thousands of images that contributed by the citizens. So here we can see that it's a mosaic for the dead bird pictures. And here are some examples. So we can see that from all those pictures, the species can be easily detected. And also and they have a very clear label and geospatial locations. And so with all of this, we think we can use geospatial modeling and AI to find the drivers for what is the major cause for the massive bird die-off. So here is the result. So we did it for, we used the GWR, the geographic weight modeling for setting the different phases of using a bunch of Earth observation data, including the smoke and also for the snow covers, and as well as different type of land covers, and most importantly, the observations of the dead bird. So on the left corner is a picture of all the dead bird in different phases. So we can find out that in different locations, we have really different drivers at different status. So here, I think the snowstorm came, here should be phase 3 and September. So the snowstorm came in the phase 3. And here is the phase 1 is the mega fire phase. And so we found that like in different places or different phase, like the disturbances to fire and also like the snow covers and also the air humidities are really like the major drivers for causing the burst fires. So we also, after we got the results, we also communicate with some of the wildlife fish and services, and that can match with the results that they have for the biological analysis. Yeah, and then we went to like a more specific areas. Then we went to more like into the species level. Because we found that some species are very clustered. So we use several species, for example, like the warblers and also the owl. So we have really different results. So for the early winter storms, for the warblers, they are more in depth with the snow covers. So it means that they don't have like a really high resilience for the snow covers. And for the owl, so for the barred owls, they are more sensitive for the smoke and air pollutions. And so here I'm going to introduce about I introduce all like applications for the naturalists. And here I'm going to introduce more about the citizen science in NASA. So here's a platform called the Zuniverse. So the Zuniverse is very unique because everyone can start their own citizen science project there. So the Zuniverse has hundreds of different citizen science projects. So the most here kind of major thing I want to talk about is the NASA Globe Observer. So the NASA Globe Observer is like an app you can download from your cell phone. So in this app, the NASA Globe Observer, really we can link the scientists to the citizens to the scientist community by collecting, for example, mosquito habitat, land covers, and also a lot of different scenarios. So for example, here is a cloud cover picture. So you just take a picture from your cell phone and upload it to the Globe Observers. And those data means a lot to the scientists. So the NASA Globe Observer has more than 20 different projects that covers all different spheres of the globe. For example, like the atmosphere, biosphere, hydrosphere, and a lot of different things. So also the NASA Globe is very like a warm or friendly community that bring us tied together. So the one that I'm doing research with is the land cover and mosquito habitat. So here is a series of globe workshops that we have been done during the summer. So for a lot of citizen science data contributions, in Wyoming, we don't have a lot of data contributions. So in a lot of regional models, we cannot apply the data because there's such a huge gap here in Wyoming. And so here also I want to promote the geospatial literacies. And so I organized a series of globe workshops here in the community colleges. And also, we also did a hackathons online in this July or June. Yeah, so in these hackathons, the students can make observations and also like by learning AI and machine learning at the same time. So I was so like amazed to see like we collect about 3,000 observations in the summer. And that's a great contribution to the database. Yeah, at the same time because we want to promote the geospatial literacies, we also did collaborate with the Amazon AWS services to provide like around 5 to 6 courses in Wyoming and also the community colleges. So here are like, for example, in Wyoming, we have 6 different machine learning courses available, and all the students can take, register and take the certificate. Yeah, and I'm very happy to provide more details if anyone is interested. Yeah, so this one is the major thing that I want to talk about, the NASA Globe Observers. So the NASA Globe Observer about the land cover is a cell phone that you just take pictures around the landscape that you are. The unique thing about the NASA Globe land cover protocol is they have a really different or unique protocols. They have you have to take the pictures from multi-view. So you have to take the pictures from south, west, east and west and north. So all the 6 directional and up and down. So all the 6 directional photos are gonna provide you what is really like in a 100 square meters, like the landscape. So all those like multi-views are like becoming the really unique protocols for the land cover sampling. So this can also be used as a reference data set for a lot of researches. So here comes the research question. We can see that for a lot of different 6 views, and some of them provide the same landscape, but a lot of time they provide different landscape. So also like we want to use this opportunity to ask the scientific question like how actually the multi-view land cover sampling protocol can increase the accuracy for land cover mapping. So here's the Hackathon interface. So we can see that like all the 6 different views that we developed, how we actually label them and the numbers. And so here is the geographic distributions for the multi-view land cover classification for globe observers. So we can see that it's a globe coverage for sure, but the United States contribute about 70% of the whole data. And also like those are about 9,000 samples contains all full directional for the photos. And the others are like around like 10 times more than this. They don't have like the completely information. So that's the data that we collect for this projects. So like here we can see that of course everyone can decide this is a scene that is forest covered. Yeah, so like all those 4 different, so we use a 4 directional. And so from here we can decide those pictures are complementing like forest cover, really close forest. So many observations are like this, and they are like half forest and half of them the other side of the road that is partially covered with forest and partially covered with roads. So like we want to decide how actually those can contribute to the accuracies. So here are we developed several algorithms for like how we combine all those 4 directional photos and to make the best prediction about mapping land cover accurately. So we developed like early fusion technique, late fusion, and also score fusions. So the early fusion technique is we fuse all those 4 photos at the beginning. And the late fusion is we feature those photos, like we classify those photos at the beginning and then merge them later on. And so the score fusion is kind of like the early fusions. So we gave them a score and then we combine the scores based on their performance. So we also did for like classifying those land cover photos, we use a series of deep learning methods, which is So we use 4. So the ResNet 50, the WyGISC, the MobileNet, and the EfficientNet. So all those are very like deep learning based. So on the left corner, on the left side is a pipeline, for example, for the ResNet 50. And so here are the land cover classification classes. So we aggregate them into different major classes. So by setting the training, validation, and testing. And the results really came that the late fusion has a much better behavior or performance than any other fusion technique. So the late fusions can increase the land cover for like 6%. And the most important takeout is multi-view is much better than single view. So here, based on all different type of deep learning algorithms we develop and we applied, so we test how actually they behave into 1 view, 2 view, 3 views, and 4 views. So we can say like actually in a simple way that more views the better. But for a lot of cases, like for the early fusion, actually sometimes is this, like we can see the 2 views behave not as like worse than the 1 view, single view. Yeah, so for the late fusion, we can see like a clear increase for the performance, for the accuracy. Yeah, so here we also did the validation. So for here, we did the validations for actually see how actually different classes behaves. So we have a lot of confidence in mapping out the forest land, urban, as well as the barren land and open water. And the challenging part is the cultivated land and the herbaceous. Yeah, so this confusion matrix is based on the best results that from the EfficientNet algorithms that we use. Yeah, so this is like a combination for like how actually the quantitative analysis compare with the multi-view with a single view on different type of land cover classes. So we can see that almost all the type of the land cover accuracies are better than single view. And here's an interesting takeout. So for a lot of the cases, this is in picture actually showing the aggregate of where are the people's attention. So where are the people's attention really decide the accuracy or decide the classes, decide the results. So like the more, for example, like the more right part is showing the hotspot that here is deciding the land cover results. So we can see that here is also like a great improvement for like inform the citizen science how to actually take better pictures and with more focus. So for example, in the water body, yeah, we can see that a lot of water body are like deciding correctly. And also we can see like also for the urban area. Yeah. And then our next step is to use them as a reference data set for satellite matching and for like to scale up. And so the most important thing for the most important database that we want to target for now is the NLCD and the Sentinel. The NLCD is the National Land Cover Database. And so we also develop for the data quality, and we also like want to geolocate and to quantify the data quality. So we develop a data dashboard on the ArcGIS Online about like making them as scores, like ranking the top observations in the locations. So we developed this comparisons with global observers and also with the national land cover data set. And in this way, we can really like geovisualize the data quality for like the top rankings for the citizen science observations and how actually they are geographically distributed. So this one is like I just start kind of exploring. This is a satellite matching program for Sentinel-2 with the NASA Globe Observer. So all those data are like we have the full directional observations covered 825 scenes of Sentinel-2 multi-temporal. So with matching those, we are gonna form like a huge data cube for matching those citizen science data for multi-temporal perspective with the satellite images. Yeah, so those are the conclusions for my NASA citizen science like land cover classification programs. So the more important takeout is that the multi-views are more valuable than the single view and can provide much more information. And also like we also decide that the late fusions is a preferred fusion approach. And also like cultivated land is challenging for a classification based on the classifier performance. Yeah, and I want to take thank you for the acknowledgement for the grants that to support the research from the NCAR and also the NASA score and also from the Microsoft. Yeah, I wanted to thank you for everyone for participating today. And this is a mosaic for all the like 3,000 of citizen science NASA Globe land cover data here as well. Yeah, thank you. Happy to take questions.
I was just curious, for the multi-views, how many are being added per day? It's still active, right?
Yeah, so like during the last 3 years, we have many observations coming. Like per day, I can say, in winter time, we don't have many observations, but at least like several per days here.
And is it increasing at all over time or
Yeah, it's
decreasing?
increasing.
Okay.
Yeah, because we have a lot of programs that are taking out the K-12 for the globe observations.
Just kind of in follow-up to that, I was thinking about, you know, with all the groups of UW students that go, say, internationally every year on instructor-led field courses, it would be interesting to engage the global office in you know, asking students when they're doing these, you know, short-term intensive courses to possibly participate in something.
Yeah, that would be
like this.
lifesaver. I really appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you.
I got a question. So I remember in one of your classes you did the iNaturalist thing. It was cool. I did like honeybees versus wasps. And one thing I noticed though, or I wanted to ask you about was like, how could you talk more about like how you dealt with the data being like concentrated in areas of, you know, where people lived? Like, how did you said you had generalized it somehow, like 8 kilometer squares or something apart from each other?
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you handle for like, I guess, a city of like, it looks like the bees live in the city.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think for
Now it's way back. It's
yeah, way back.
No, keep going.
There we go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so actually we filter out a lot of the data in the second step. So the second step is based on the population. And so after that, based on the population, we develop a geographic filter for filtering out like the cities, like the data that clustered in the urban areas. And then for the type, for the filter 3, that is an example for like a national level. And so at that time we used so we used the semi-variables to decide like how actually the data are clustered. And then we decide the how many, like the distance that we set how many kilometers to be apart. So the data can be spread out.
See, and so that you just kind of have to make that decision. Okay.
The threshold, yeah. Yeah, and but for I want to mention that for the second one, the land scan, it has a very high resolution for populations. So for that step, we can filter like a lot of the data for the cluster. Yeah, great question. Thank you.
Thank you. No, it's interesting.
Paddington has a question online. He says he appreciates your definition of citizen science, which highlights that citizens can complete one or more steps of scientific research. Did the citizens in your project do more than simple but important data collection?
Yeah, so for the NASA Globe Observer data that I haven't, they are just taking the photos for land covers. But for another project I forgot to mention is the mosquito habitat. So really like we send them out for like a magnifier on the cell phone. So they take the pictures using those equipment actually are really difficult for me. So they go to the pond and they go to the rivers and take all those measurements. And we also have a really large data sets from the mosquito habitat as well. Several thousands of observations. And you can see the clear larvae bodies in the pictures. It's great. Yeah.
So you're in the pictures that go 4 directions, you want to classify the type of land cover, right? And so you test that against human classifiers and you assume that their classifications are correct. So that's the goal, right? And then you're testing the AI interpretations against those human classifications. So the problem with the forest on one side and the road on the other side. So what do the humans say about that? I mean, how do you know that's wrong? How do you know it's contradictory and that somebody wasn't just standing right there thinking this is an interesting place to take a picture because it's different. So how do you handle that?
That's a great question. So like when you are actually taking the observations, you have 4 different views and that you take pictures and also you label the images. And there's another important takeout, and you also measure the percentage of the land covers in different observations. For example, you measure there's 10% of the roads or 90% of the forest. So all those informations are in the labeling system as well.
I guess what I really want to know is what does the assessment of contradictory mean to the data interpretation?
Yeah, so that means like how actually the performing, like how actually the image can predict the length, like the classification of that scene. So yeah, we've done so we've been taking the labels for the percentage, not the decisions.
But does contradictory mean that you exclude that datum or?
No. Yeah.
Okay, it's just an interesting feature.
Yeah, so we use them like a proportion. It's not like a deciding thing.
Do they have to use an app to take all of these photos and upload all
Yeah.
of this? Oh, they do?
It's a cell phone app.
And then who's that, something that people sign up for to take these photos?
Yeah, so you have to sign up and then you have to take like a 10 minutes training. Yeah. Yeah, many users are skipping that training, so.
That one would represent that funnel diagram that you showed, like that training sort of
Yeah,
increases the accuracy by
Did not take.
actually, requiring that training.
Oh, that's actually. Yeah, I wonder, that would, I don't know if you know this or, but just interesting thought, that'd be interesting if you could sort your data by those who skipped the training.
yeah.
Yeah, like, oh, they took
Yeah.
the training,
Yeah.
right? So,
I can do
this
that.
user skipped the training, more contradictory data is weird.
So it's another question, like asking about whether they need to use the app or not, like. What if you, I don't know, what if you collected everybody's phone here in the room and took out the selfies and the pictures of the pets, right? But you would find a lot of landscape photos on
Yeah.
my camera anyway, right? And probably would from a lot of other people.
Mhm.
Like, how would you sort of design a process where you could like take all these landscape photos, and most of them are geotagged if we have our phones turned on to geotag, right?
Yeah,
And
that's a
could you sort of start to get at some of the same things or not?
great idea. So that actually came to perspective for the citizen science. So one is like OpenStreetMap that you just take points, and the others are with trainings. So on those, we can combine like all those data are valuable, and those are like without training and with trainings, that will be important and interesting to see.
It just occurs to me, how many photos appear on the Strava feed? You know, when people are out in nature, that would be a good way to get away from urban area photos.
Yeah, I talked with Jackie Plancher about, so she say a lot of hikers might be interested taking pictures. That would be, yeah, we have a lot of data that contribute from the hikers, hiking people in Oregon, but Montana, Wyoming, we don't see that many at all.
How did you, in your, the images where you had the hot spots for where people looked at,
Uh-huh.
how did you do that? Was that like figuring out where their eyes were, doing a, I think I've seen this before, like the expert versus the novice in like looking at, as a geologist, looking at like, outcrops. And so they do pictures and show where people's eyes. So how did you come up with these heat maps of where people are looking at to decide what this is?
It's also like an AI package. Yeah, so like the attention, so it's an AI package I can send you later. With all the training samples and the result, and we can decide like which areas are actually deciding which type of classes.
Okay, so it's not
deciding
the people, this is your AI
Classifiers.
classification. Yeah, it'd be interesting so you have tags from people for each of these too, right?
Yeah,
And that may be going to the question that you were asking today, how do people decide how to classify what they're looking at?
yeah.
We have another online question from Sean Buckmiller.
Okay.
Says multi-viewing one location is very interesting with different photo taking abilities, but how would photos from a phone compared to a camera with wider lenses affect the data collected?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, when the data protocol for the NASA global uncover was developed, we didn't have like the 360 panoramic pictures. So that's why we decide like 4 different views that can form like a 360 degree panoramic circle. Yeah. So
Can I ask one more?
Yeah.
Just because this is super interesting. This is a question about the bird mortality.
Yeah,
And you had like 3 species, and I don't know anything about birds really, but like, so one of them seemed like a small bird, a warbler, but then there was an owl, right? And,
yeah.
like, was this impacted by, like, there must be a lot more warblers out there in the world than there are owls, right?
Yeah.
So how does like sort of the, I don't know, the size of the population of the different species, like, did that make a difference? Not physical size, but just the actual number of owls there are versus the number of warblers, like, did that play into this at all?
Actually, we picked the 3 species with the most observations.
Oh, okay, that were recorded.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so, and there was like the warblers are the most, like with a lot of observations. Yeah, that's a good question. So on the, but like we are analyzing in the micro system scale. So, yeah, those are, but the geolocations for the owls are very limited as well. You can
Right.
see.
Yeah, interesting. Thanks. Anybody else? We're just about out of time. Last one.
Oh, it's last. When you're talking about like the early fusion, late and all that, that's all like, has the data already been classified at that point by the users that uploaded it? And like, is there any pre-processing? Like that describes the AI, right? Like you're just telling it when to process it.
Yeah, so for the late fusion, so all of those are like classifying the same time. So for the late fusions and the score fusions, we classify at the beginning. And for the like early fusions, we just merge the image and then classify at the end.
So, but you're like, there's no classification done by like, this is computer classification at this point, though, any of the fusions, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's more work for me to be done to really explain these classifiers other than just listing those methods. Yeah.
Great. Well, Dee, thank you so much for being with us. Great presentation. And thank you all for being here. Have a great winter break and holidays, and we'll see you in the next semester. All right, take care, everyone.